You know, people who say,
Okay, at 7 o'clock, now we call this meeting to order. Everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
here,
Colosimo,
Present.
Pat,
Here.
Belshewski,
Here.
Readers,
Here.
Moncazar,
here,
Spears,
Present.
Teeling. A quorum is established.
Do you have any amendments to tonight's agenda? Yes, sir.
I just wanted to pull admin 2015-06 off consent. I just had some questions about it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other amendments? All in favor of amending the agenda as presented, please state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we do have one presentation tonight, and it's a presentation that I enjoy doing as mayor, and we have a full crowd to do it, which is nice. We have a couple officers who we're going to recommend who have went above and beyond the call of duty and actually saved the life of one of our residents. So I would like to bring the chief up, and we also have a representative from the fire department here. And the chief will read the commendation letter. Call your guys up, chief.
All right, I'll start off the commendation letter. It says, I, Sergeant Quiggle, would like to commend Officers McMahon, Nelson, and Kulam and their life-saving actions that they performed while responding to a call of a person with a weapon. On March 3rd, 2015, at approximately 21:02 hours, that's 9:02 at night, officers received a call of a male with a gun who had forced entry into a house. Upon arrival at the scene, after it was established that the offender was no longer there, one of the victims began to complain of leg weakness and collapsed. Officer McMahon immediately began checking the victim's pulse and breathing. Upon the loss of the pulse, Officer McMahon, with the assistance of Officers Nelson and Kulam, began life-saving measures. Officer Nelson performed CPR, while Officer Kulam performed breath, and Officer McMahon administered the AED. Once the AED was placed on the subject, the shock was advised, and Officer McMahon delivered the shock. Eventually, the victim's breathing and pulse were reestablished, and he was transported to an area hospital where he was recovering at this time. It is my belief that the actions taken by Officer McMahon, Officer Nelson, and Officer Kulam saved the victim's life. These three officers kept their composure and reacted appropriately as they were trained to do. Because of this, the life of the citizens of our community was saved. For this, it is my belief that they should be recognized.
It's been a tradition in the Bristol Kendall Fire Department that we also recognize our members when they do get a successful saving from cardiac arrest. And these three officers acted textbook when this occurred to this gentleman. This gentleman suffered cardiac arrest, as evident on the AED. When they put on the AED, they run an EKG strip, and it shows the lethal rhythm that he was in. He was in ventricular fibrillation. Ventricular fibrillation is not compatible with life. There's no pulse. The person's considered clinically dead at that time. If no intervention is done and stuff, he becomes biologically dead, and there's no way they can get him back. These officers' fast determination that he needed that AED. They started CPR immediately without hesitation. They applied the AED. The AED told them to shock. They shocked the gentleman. And then they went back to doing compressions, which was paramount in this, because the fact that at times when the heart receives the electrical shock, it needs compression still until it stabilizes. The gentleman ended up stabilizing. They ended up, one of the members of the ambulance crew is here, put him in the ambulance, and he woke up in the ambulance, which is phenomenal from somebody to being clinically dead. So you should be proud of these officers. I know Bristol Kendall Fire Department, we're very proud of these officers. I mean, what they did and stuff was something that we don't see a lot and stuff. And what we'd like to do is we'd like to present them with a sudden cardiac arrest pin to wear proudly on their uniforms, signifying that somebody still has a grandfather or father because of their actions.
don't think so. I note that I think it says, it just speaks to the level of training that the Yorkville Police Department and also the medics from Bristol Pendle that do our CPR training, which was in fact the week before this incident happened. It's a level of commitment that the city and the department have to making sure we're trained properly for events like this. Thank you very much.
There's one bad thing about starting a meeting like that, it's always downhill. We do have a couple of public hearings tonight. So we'll open public hearing for PC 2015-02, third amendment to the annexation agreement for the Prestwick of Yorkville subdivision dated April 26, 2005, as amended May 27, 2014, between Yorkville Farms Development LLC, owner-developer, and Illinois Limited Liability Corporation, and the United City of Yorkville, Kendall County, Illinois, for the purpose of amending the schedule of payment for acquired land cash fees by the owner-developer for compliance with the park land donations. Is there anyone here from the public who would like to say anything about this amendment to this annexation agreement? Anyone from council? Hearing none, we'll close public hearing for that one. Next, we'll go on to public hearing for the proposed fiscal year 2015-2016 budget. Do we have anyone who would like to comment on the proposed fiscal year 2015-2016 budget? Anyone from council for public hearing? Hearing none, we'll close public hearing. Next, we move on to citizen comments for items that are on our agenda this evening. Do we have any citizen comments? Yes, sir. Please, there should be a sign-in sheet, and please state your name for the record.
Tom Swinski.
The time, I think, Rose forwarded your letter to all the aldermen.
Oh, thank you.
We got your letter.
Well, you want me to read it, or?
You can if you want, for the public record if you'd like.
It's always good to have that public record.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to have the clerk attach a copy to the minutes.
Okay. First and foremost, I appreciate the fact that the prolonged problem with the infrastructure that has plagued Countryside is now in the discussion stage. I realize United City Yorkville has a variety of projects it must address. I'm confident that the administration will address these projects to the best of their ability with consideration to the budget issues. As a longtime resident of Countryside subdivision, one of the older subdivisions in the United City of Yorkville, I would like to express my opposition to the idea of a special service area to address the infrastructure project. I'd like to reach out to the United City of Yorkville to express my opposition. I believe it will definitely overly burden residents of the Countryside subdivision with this additional cost. Accordingly, the special service tax area law states, for petition signed by at least 51% of the electors residing within the special service area and by at least 51% of the owners of record of land included within the boundaries of the special service area can object to the creation of the SSA could take effect. Over the last 40-plus years of this established subdivision, the residents of Countryside have always supported development and repair projects. I'd hope that this project will also be supported with a well-planned and reasonable financial solution other than an SSA. Serious consideration should be given to the fact that exposing the residents of Countryside subdivision to this type of additional cost, as stated by Mr. Bill Baird, average cost $33,000 per lot, would not justify the amount in relation to the real estate valuations. I'd like to encourage the United City of Yorkville, as it has in the past, to distribute this cost of infrastructure redevelopment and a reasonable financing method. I realize, according to the recent articles, that it has been stated to replace the water mains due to an above average of breakage. Could this be solved by relining the existing mains and then proceed with replacing the streets in different phases? The SSA would only add additional burden to the existing and future business and services that have recently been developed in the new Kendall Crossing. While I support the need to address the infrastructure project, I would again encourage the United City of Yorkville to come together as it has as an entire city and examine alternative solutions. Thank you for the opportunity to express my concerns. I look forward to a well-planned solution to this project. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Do you have any other citizen comments?
Hello, my name is Jim Rados. I'm a long-term Kendall County resident, developer of Kendall Crossing. And I want to thank you for finally addressing these roads in the countryside too. It's really been a chore. I've got grandchildren that come there and ride their bikes in those streets, and it's pretty bad. I know you've got some major problems on how to get this thing done, and I feel reassured that your engineering company, Eric, the people you have are going to figure out how it's going to get done. We had a little taste of this when we redid Countryside, the shopping center. Those same water pipes were all dug up and replaced with new water mains. All the infrastructure was done, all brand new now there. So we are compliant and good. And we're looking forward to the day when Countryside, the subdivision, will also be that way. So I just wanted to thank you for finally addressing it, because it's really it's a hazard there for our children and for our people that travel those roads every day. Tom was here today. He came down. He said he drove through the subdivision. He says, "Oh my God, I couldn't believe how bad the roads are there." And I think if we leave it for a prolonged period of time more, I mean, if we leave it for any extended period of time, we're going to run into trouble maybe losing these streets, because they're really getting bad. So thanks again for your attention to this, and anything we can do to help, we'd appreciate it. So, thanks.
Thank you, sir. Any other citizen comment?
Good evening. My name is Tom Rogauskas. I represent the ownership of the Yorkville Apartments and the York Meadows Apartments, both located on Kendall Drive, and I definitely look forward to the city addressing the needs of the street. They definitely are impacting, the approach to our property, and I'm also got wind of the situation with the proposed SSA, and would be definitely against that, because I believe it would severely impact the value of the property. And we have a difficult time now, as it is, operating the property with real estate taxes and water costs. So I do greatly appreciate the village looking into remedying the streets and stuff. And I know, that the infrastructure is hard to address, because we had to deal with that when we built those apartments back in '03. I understand the costs are high, and it's a big undertaking. But I'm here to basically say greatly appreciate you guys looking into the street situation there. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any other citizen comment? Okay, just so everyone knows, the city council or staff has never recommended an SSA. It's just something that came out in the newspaper as a suggestion, and we'll be discussing it possibly later tonight and for the whole next month as we talk about our budget. So, thank you, gentlemen. Okay, moving on. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the regular city council meeting, February 24th, 2015, as presented. So moved.
Second.
Comments, questions, or corrections in the minutes? All in favor of approving the minutes as presented, please state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, bills for payment, $450,318.49. Moving on to mayor's report. I will entertain a motion to approve the mayor's appointment of Greg Engelmanson as an adjudication hearing officer.
So moved.
Second.
Comments or questions on this appointment?
I have some comments.
Yes, Rose?
I am going to vote nay on this particular appointment. Greg is a wonderful person, and my problem is that he was born and raised in Yorkville and has many, many ties with Yorkville residents. He's a very personable person. And I think that it would be an injustice to place him in this position.
Okay, thank you, Rose. Any other comments, questions?
Is it going to be 3 years? Or will we replace it?
We're going to be replacing. Anything else? Roll call, please.
Teeling,
Aye.
Cook,
Aye.
Cox,
Aye.
Reuters,
Aye.
Spears,
Nay.
Colosimo,
Aye.
Funkasser,
Aye.
Hilstewski.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, we do have an admin committee report, which was taken off the consent agenda. So I will entertain a motion to approve an ordinance approving the second amendment to the amended intergovernmental agreement between the city and Yorkville Bristol Sanitary District and authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute.
Second.
Carol, you had a question?
I did. I just had a little bit of a concern about the verbiage of paragraph 3 on page 1. The paragraph of the agreement shall be amended as follows, is it basically in the ordinance part of it that I'm talking about, not the actual agreement part. Initially, the way we were doing it now, we had the right to deduct our fee and then send them the money. And then the way this is set up now is we don't deduct our fee, we send them the money, and then they pay us, which I don't necessarily have a problem with, but I would like some sort of provision in there that says that if we're not paid in full, if our invoice is not paid within 30, 45 days, that in the next billing cycle, we have the right to take our money before we send it to them. I mean, I think in the event they don't pay or they're behind in paying, I think it's silly for us to be getting the money and then be forced to send it to them and then ask them, please pay us back the money you owe us. So I don't mind that they want to have this set up, but anytime you're the payee, you want to make sure that the payor is going to pay. So if we can add a provision that says, within 30 days or 45 days, if the bill is not paid, in the next billing cycle, we are entitled and we have the right to, without further proceeding, to take our money from the billing cycle until they're brought current. So.
Question for the attorney would be whether the Illinois Prompt Payment Act would apply, I guess, in a situation with an intergovernmental agreement?
It doesn't, it would absolutely apply, however, it doesn't force them to make payment.
True. The Illinois Prompt Payment Act requires payment
30 days.
within 60 days, I believe. 60, 30? 60 days without interest penalty on any bill that the municipalities own. So the sanitary district is a local government, so they would
And quite frankly, I don't care if it says 60 days.
Okay.
As long as there's some sort of provision there that says at the end of the day, if we're not getting paid or they're behind on their invoice, if we have their money, that we can take it before we give them the rest of their money.
Yeah, I doubt that they'll object just because
They
they've never
intend to
not
pay us
paid.
properly.
I understand that, absolutely.
I'm sure.
But just in case.
So what we would need then, if that is the consensus of the city council, an amendment to the ordinance be approved on the condition that an additional provision be made that in the event of non-payment in compliance with the Illinois Prompt Payment Act, that the amount may be deducted from the next funds due.
Okay, let's see if there's any other changes. Yes, sir.
When we sent this from committee here, this was not in as an amendment.
Correct.
This was changed after that.
Correct.
Why was it changed? I know they had already approved the agreement prior to it going to committee. Where did this come from?
That was the reason. They had approved it as such. I think we've already actually approved it, haven't we? Didn't
Well,
they?
they actually approved the original one that was sent to admin committee, And then when I told them that we wanted to add back the date, they added that language, which is why I included it and made note
So
of it.
they approved it without this language?
Well, they approved our original agreement that didn't have, that just had the 90-day out clause without the April 30, 27 year. But yeah, you're right, they did initially approve it without that language.
We made a change. We wanted to have the change so that it would come back to us, so that we could review this agreement every 2 years.
Correct.
Versus having it automatically renewed. They added this in after they had approved it initially.
Yes. Yes. They had requested this change as a result of our requested change to their originally approved agreement. So,
Candidly,
yeah.
I like the language the way it was. We collect it, we send it to them. In essence, it's the same agreement we would have had before.
No. No. The original agreement had an unlimited term and a 90-day out clause. They approved that agreement. They came...
Prior, the agreement that was in place had a 2-year review.
The last agreement that the city council had approved 3 years ago had that term on it.
Had the review.
Yes.
What was recently approved by YBSD removed that and had a 90-day out.
We had suggested that it be open-ended. It was staff's recommendation for it to be open-ended with a 90-day out clause. They approved it as is. It got in front of admin committee. They had suggested that there be a 2-year term with a 90-day out clause, which then requires them to redo it. When they reviewed it, they suggested this language because that's the payment language, because that's what we currently do. We don't deduct it. So the change from admin committee to city council was at our staff recommendation as a result of the fact that this is something that we do currently, so I didn't think that it was a big deal to leave it as it, or to change it to an invoice method rather than a deduction method.
We're changing how we, basically this agreement that we have is a change of how we're going to be billing.
No, we currently bill via an invoice method.
Okay.
Yeah, so we had requested it in this new agreement to be a deduction method because that gives us more authority, and they're now, rejecting that, suggesting that it go to a collection fee, which is, staff recommendation is fine because that's what we've been doing for years. So.
I'd like to add something.
Go ahead, Rose.
I also have a concern with this amendment. I believe that this is going to be creating additional billing and invoicing procedures for our staff. And if this amendment is approved, I would like to request that the city increase the service fee rate to 7%.
Getting argument here.
Well, because I was just gonna say what Bart said, I thought we always did bill them. I thought that's the way, because I remember distinctly that there was a time when we weren't even billing enough, and someone that works here found that we weren't billing them enough, and they paid it, that it was, do you remember that? So I thought we had always billed.
That's correct. We have always billed them.
So I didn't know it was going to change.
So now the language is matching the procedure. That's pretty much.
See, I was under the impression that we were deducting, not billing.
No.
We've never deducted?
Ever?
No, I don't believe so. We've always just billed them, and they pay promptly within about 2 weeks after receiving the invoice. So that hasn't been an issue collection-wise.
We were just looking at the original from 2013, which stated we were going to deduct. So we just never followed the original agreement?
Correct.
Okay, so that was our intention, but we just never did that. We billed them instead.
Correct. Yeah, as long as Rob and I can remember, we've always invoiced them whether the power is to deduct or not.
Do we know why we just didn't deduct it?
I don't.
Accounting-wise, wouldn't it just be easier just to get our money in, deduct, and send it to them? And then we don't have to bill, and we don't have to wait. It'd be...
Well, from an administrative standpoint, it's really the same amount of time. We'd have to journalize it, or just do an AR invoice, and then the AR invoice posts automatically to the general ledger software. So there's really no administrative burden to do it either way. It's just we've always billed them.
I mean, obviously with the fact that we've always invoiced them, that kind of changes my perspective. But since the old language gave us the authority to deduct, I mean, I still would like to have that little bit of a safeguard in there if there are any issues with payment. I don't anticipate any issues with payment, but that's why we have safeguards. So, I would still make a motion to amend to approve the agreement contingent on the basis that we add a provision that states that if they are over 60 days past due on any invoice, that we have the authority to deduct. So I would make that motion.
Do we have a second? You second? Comments or questions on the amendment? All right, roll call vote on the amendment.
Pilczewski.
Aye.
Teeling. Vogt.
Aye.
Gott.
Aye.
Frieders.
Aye.
Spears.
Aye.
Colosimo.
Aye.
Funkelsler.
Nay.
Nay. Motion passes.
Now back to the original amended motion. Any other comments or questions? So what happens, Bart, if we approve it, then we gotta bring it back to them for approval again?
Yes.
Okay. That's fine. Any other comments or questions on the original motion, amended motion? Roll call, please.
Gott.
Aye.
Frieders.
Aye.
Spears.
Aye.
Colosimo.
Aye.
Funkelsler.
Nay.
Pilczewski.
Aye.
Teeling. Vogt.
Aye.
Motion passes.
No other committee reports, anything from Park Board? Tim, anything from Park Board? Did you want to give a quick update on Bristol Bay? We just found out some information today that you were Bart.
Yeah, the state has sent us a letter notifying us that it intends to rescind the entire Bristol Bay 65 OSLED grant. So there's a couple provisions in the contract that allows them to terminate with cause for convenience and something else. They're terminating for convenience. So the project hasn't formally started yet, where we haven't incurred any obligations that I'm aware of. We have expended some funds on engineering and architectural related items. And the contract contemplates that the state will reimburse us for those costs. They have asked for a detailed accounting analysis of what we've incurred so far. Kathy and I will be reviewing the contract to make sure that everything is as it is, and if we have any loopholes to reinstate it, obviously we'd prefer to do that. But looks like an uphill battle at this point, and so then our only remedy is legislative at that point, so or executive.
So we just found this out literally about 4:30.
Yeah.
That grant was what, 400,000?
Yeah.
Ken?
Is this going to be a lot of the OSLED grants? Are they coming back and?
We've heard that they intend to rescind as many as possible. Now that's Tim hearing it through the grapevine, and it would certainly seem like that because this is an approved grant agreement. They awarded this in, I believe it was November of 2013, and we approved a grant agreement in June of 2014. So this is far before any election issues had popped up, which we have heard that the ones that were just recently approved in like January or even December of 2014 are being just nixed outright. This is an approved grant agreement they're intending to terminate. So,
How about Riverfront?
I haven't heard any confirmation. It's in the same kind of status. I mean, we're getting ready to vote on the actual playground equipment at Park Board on Thursday and then incur the obligation at the next city council meeting. So whether or not that would qualify, or would prevent the state from rescinding it is a different story. But I sent a request for clarification today and hadn't heard back. So, I mean, they emailed it to me, didn't come in the mail, so it's not like a mail issue, which gives me a little bit of hope, I guess, that Riverfront won't be, but who knows? Riverfront was awarded the year prior, so 2012.
Okay. Yes.
Well, I just wanted to be proactive, make sure we look into if we approve, a couple $100,000 of playground equipment to purchase, and then the grant is withdrawn, whether that's a recoverable expense based on the contract that we have with the state.
Definitely.
Because if it isn't, I'm going to be real hesitant to vote for the equipment until we find out what the state of Illinois is going to do.
Understood.
Okay.
Is there any history of the state rescinding grants?
This is the first that I've heard of it. I'm sure that there's probably been some broken agreements in the past. Nothing for termination for convenience, though, I can't imagine. So it's something that I'll be inquiring more from just a, an interesting side note, but. Okay.
A new day, ladies and gentlemen. Anything from Planning Commission? Or ZBA? No City Council report, City Clerk's report? Community and liaison reports. Yes.
I wanted to thank you for recommending me to go for your tasting for you, Mayor. So I gained about 5 pounds.
You done a fine job.
The Aurora Tourism Group is having their tastings, and the mayor just couldn't make 2 of them. Well, I did kind of ask for the dessert one. That was good.
The culinary champions.
The culinary champions. It was quite an experience. It was a lot of fun. I hear we're hosting, I believe, next.
Yeah, I think
Next
so.
one? But it's seafood, so you could have that one.
Yorkville is May, I think, and we are.
I do love seafood, I just want to.
Okay, well, I need to come
Yeah,
check.
it really, it was very well put on. It was very interesting. And you go for a tasting, you think they're going to give you a little cup. No. I ate, I don't know how many bowls of soup. I think we had 9 bowls of soup. I'm talking bowls. And of course they're good, so you just got to keep eating them. And we had 8 desserts.
And you had a celebrity chef as one of the judges, I think, right?
Yes.
Judges
Yes, last
representative?
time, she had a show on one of the Food Network. So that was interesting. That was nice. That was at the Opera House.
Yeah.
On the stage, so you couldn't make any faces while you were eating anything, because everybody was watching you with the spots. But it was very good, thank you, and it was a good event.
Absolutely.
Good restaurant won, they actually won both Gaetanos, Gaetanos, in Batavia, Italian fusion cooking. So I recommend everybody go there, the food was very good. Everybody was good. We didn't have any desserts, I don't think from Yorkville, but we had second place in the soup was our new restaurant. It was Pinheads, and they also own Roadhouse.
Yeah.
Chicken dumpling soup.
Nice.
So, go there and have a bowl.
See, Mariposa Town has some advantages.
I'm not even, it's Larry, I'm Mayor Pro Tem.
I got 2 this Saturday. AID's having their telethon over at Wansea. It's pretty much all day, but if you want, you can give me your phone number and I'll call and take your money. I'll be answering phones for a little bit. They've also kind of weaseled me into playing guitar for a little while. Between 4 and 5, I'm not quite sure of the time yet. I'll just be there for a few hours. Then also, March 21st at Aurora Central Catholic High School is the 100th anniversary of the Aurora Kiwanis Pancake Day. If you don't show up, you are not an American. I'm looking at all of you. 7 a.m. to noon. I think it's $7 per person, $6 for kids, or $20 for a family. I will be slinging milk with my daughter from 6:30 a.m. till about 9:30. So come on out and throw some dairy at your face while you eat flapjacks and stuff.
Nice. Anything else? Yes, sir.
There's a little activity with the CVB this week. Candidates, there's a new round of candidates that are going to be looked through in the next 2 weeks. So stay tuned. Maybe out of this group, they'll find an executive director.
That would be an accomplishment. Okay, and for those of you that don't know, the governor was here in Yorkville on Friday. Came and did a little press conference at Sunfield Restaurant. Had quite the turnout. Had news channels from all over the place, channel 257, 32, 9. So they were all there. He talked about some of his plans as far as giving local voters more control, giving municipalities more control, and pretty much what a shambles the state is in. So as we go into our budget, I know there's a lot of talk about cutting the LGDF. I think we have to prepare for that real possibility. We had a private meeting with the governor after our event here up in Elgin. It was myself and 5 other mayors. We got to sit down with the governor for about a half an hour. And he made it pretty clear that he needs his reforms to go through. And if his reforms don't go through, that you can count on the LGDF getting cut and who knows what else. But if the reforms do go through, I mean, he's looking for our help. Municipalities could come out stronger than ever. I mean, home rule was talked about, the expansion of the services, sales tax, you know, some things about prevailing wage and right to work that would definitely help us out. So there's a whole list of reforms that he's looking to push. So it's going to be a very interesting session down in Springfield, and I'm sure it'll run late until the summer. But yeah, as we discuss our budget, we definitely have to keep that in the forefront of our minds, that we could definitely be seeing some cuts, and I would count on it. It's going to be painful in the short term, but who knows, hopefully they'll get something done down there.
So, I mean, the schedules don't really coincide with us approving our budget and when we find out what Springfield is doing. So, I mean, a 50% cut to the local government distributive fund is $400,000. 25% cut is $200,000.
No.
I mean,
50% could be 800,000. 25%.
Oh, 800,000, and 25% cut.
800, 400.
400,000. So that, you know, that kind of puts us in a position where, how do we budget?
Right.
When we don't know what's coming in. That's a integral part of budgeting is, do we pass a temporary budget for 2 months to fund the city until we find out what the state's doing? I mean, what are our options?
My recommendation would be to pass a full budget. Whether or not you want to implement the cuts is a different story, but I think by the time a deal actually surfaces in the media, gets voted on, and then gets implemented, you're probably going to have a month or so to act. So that's 2 city council meetings where we're going to be discussing the same things you would now. So I guess my initial recommendation would be still not to implement a budget that takes into account the full, but maybe you've got a back pocket budget that you can roll out if it does come to fruition.
Yeah, I know the legislative breakfast with all the legislatures, I mean, they kept making the point that this is a starting point, you know, so don't get too crazy about it right away, that it's the starting point of the budget, so there'll be a lot of horse trading back and forth, I'm sure.
I'm just going to ask, is staff working on a contingency plan?
Yeah, it's a full list of revenue and expenditure items that will roll out at some point or another. It's not going to look too dissimilar than the one we did 4 or 5 years ago. We were talking about our property taxes and non-abatement bonds, except I think we've implemented more than half of those. I was looking through that list today. So, but it'll be every crazy idea under the sun that we can think of, and then a lot of room for other ideas that we can't even think of yet. And then it'll just be what's palatable and what's not, and go from there.
Yeah, but meeting the guy, I mean, he seems like a very determined chap, I tell you. He definitely used to get in his way. You can tell that in the brief meeting that we had, so I wouldn't underestimate the guy. You know, hopefully something happens downstate.
Well, I just wanted to add, I mean, I'm not necessarily against cuts. I mean, I think we all need to take a cut. You know, it's unfortunate we're not going to get the park in Bristol Bay, but the state of Illinois is saving $400,000. I mean, I get it. I get that we're broke. And the way you get yourself out from being broke is to start making cuts. The issue I have with the local government distributive funds is that they're offering a 50% hit to us, and they're not really offering 50% across the board. So I'm open to the idea of taking a cut even on the distributive funds. I get that, but I just think 50%. I don't think Yorkville will do it, but I think what most municipalities are going to end up doing is they're going to pass that down to the residents by raising their property taxes. So the state's, in essence, washing their hands of their problem and saying, cities, it's your problem, you be the bad guy, you raise your taxes. So it's a backdoor tax increase because the vast majority of municipalities, I hope not us, but the vast majority of municipalities are simply just going to raise their taxes to cover it. So I don't think it's going about it the right way. I'm willing to take a hit, as we should, but I just think 50% is just a backdoor tax increase.
Just a point of emphasis on that, though, he's also planning on freezing our property taxes, so units too.
Well, you're talking about property tax freeze along with the cuts.
Well, we've in essence, in Yorkville, we have frozen property taxes for the last 4 years, so it won't affect us that much. But
Yep. Oh, we will see. Any other community or liaison reports? Yes, sir.
I attended the Greentown, I don't know if you call it summit, over at the Two Brothers Run House about a week ago Thursday. Kind of interesting in the aspect that if you do kind of plan for implementing some things that kind of fall into the category of green infrastructure, in your comprehensive plan and the way that you plan things, while some people might kind of fight you on it because we don't need that stuff, we need to save money, down the road you can actually replenish your deep well aquifers and save money in the long run. So some of the things that I took notes on, I'm interested to see how they will kind of pop up in the next year or so. But you got to give Tom Weisner a high five once in a while, because that guy has a bunch of people giving him really, really good ideas, and he's allowed to kind of run with them. And some of the kind of improvements they've made in Aurora that at first I'm like, what is this? I mean, the rain gardens on the east side, I'm like, this is a little ridiculous. But when they show you the numbers, that they're not having to treat about 90% of their stormwater, it's like, to me, a year ago, I wouldn't have cared. But now that I'm actually looking at it from a how do we save money perspective, by making a few changes and explain to people over the course of a year or so why you're making changes, can actually save you a lot of money and put water in your well. So it's, I thought it was a really, really cool event. And they had free beer, which I didn't have any because I'm a vegan. I'm also blind. But it was a really, really cool event. So I'm hoping that they do this kind of more often and that next year more of you people attend, because I wanted them to kind of explain to me, how do you get people to kind of invest in their own green infrastructure without pushing it on them? Because I'm usually very hesitant to do something if you're pushing it on me. But if I learn about it through, osmosis or whatever, I tend to kind of jump on it. And some of the stuff that they were talking about, just as far as when we remove part of the dam, Yorkville is getting all sorts of props as far as the amount of fish species we have just south of the dam. So dam removal was a big topic. I mean, Kane County has done its homework. They're pushing to get more dams removed. Of course, with a new governor, it's probably not going to happen as quickly as they thought. But I was in a presentation talking about Kane County, and the highest part of every graph is Yorkville. Like we've got more things going for us ecologically than pretty much everybody else. And I don't know if it has anything to do with the fact that we have Fox Metro just north of us, and we're getting all of this, clean water as it comes back into the river or what. But if you were there, you would have been kind of raising the roof, because Yorkville was getting props all over the day. I mean, it was all day. I'm sending Bart shots of, look at this, Yorkville, and it's cool to see. So when you're not kind of constantly looking at what's good about Yorkville, you're like, we're out of money. Well, they've actually done quite a bit, so that we've actually improved our quality of life in a number of ways that aren't fully noticeable unless you've got waders on. So I think we owe it to ourselves to get the hell outside and get your waders on, because we have a lot of resources here. And if we pay a little bit more attention, it might actually make more sense in the future to put some money towards slowing down on what we do with our stormwater, and potentially saving some money on wells in the next 20, 30 years too. So very cool event. Hopefully they'll do it every year, but I would highly recommend you guys attend next year.
Thank you, Joel. Good stuff. Okay, any staff reports?
Just a couple items, Your Honor. First is that now the snow is starting to melt, and it's election season. I do expect some campaign signs to go up someday. We don't have any specific election sign provisions. It's the same provisions as every other sign in the city. We just ask that they stay out of the right-of-way. So we will go through with code enforcement and remove signs that are in the right-of-way, usually with no notice, because it's a public safety issue. So that's just a general public service announcement for everybody. Two, with the warm weather, the grass is going to start to grow again. Just a reminder that the weeds ordinance does not kick in until May 1st. So we will go out and inspect properties and serve notices, but we won't write any tickets until after May 1st. And then third, we do have our 2015 City Services Survey up and running on SurveyMonkey. There's a link on the Facebook page, and it's in your utility bill that got mailed out last week. So it's the best opportunity over a long period of time to tell, the city what you think about everything that's going on in the city. So we've done this now for 3 out of the past 4 years. So this will be the first really good analysis at the end of the survey that we'll be able to take and look at how opinions on different issues have changed over time. So a pretty cool feature that we have. And that's all.
All right, moving on to the continuation of the mayor's report is the proposed fiscal year 2015-2016 budget is open for discussion. Bart did the presentation 2 weeks ago. We've had time for it to digest a little bit. A couple of big things on there, obviously countryside, what we want to do with it, how we want to fund it. YEDC is another question. These cuts that are coming, that's open for discussion. So whatever we want to discuss tonight, we'll be discussing it over the course of next month. So if anyone wants to throw anything out there. Yes, sir.
Just have a question on the countryside.
the number we're looking at, reading this correctly, about 8 million total. How accurate? I mean, how are we coming up with that number? Is I guess my question.
Go ahead, Brad.
We've taken a look at some more detailed preliminary estimates on the water main and also on the road. I mean, we feel they're fairly accurate. I mean, the intent is to get fairly close and have a reasonable budget number, and that's where we're at. We certainly haven't proceeded with final engineering, and it's not a final estimate, but it's what we call preliminary, a little bit more detailed than just concept, but they're good, strong budget numbers.
I guess my concern is, and in a good way, Game Farm Road came in way under the estimate. And I try to be optimistic that maybe Countryside is being overestimated and we don't need this much money. But how confident do you feel that we're going to need close to $8 million?
Well, we've actually been involved in some rather large water main projects here recently, in a local community, so we have really good, strong numbers on what prices are going to be. So we're pretty confident on where our numbers are at. It's hard to say. You never know exactly what the bidding climate's going to be when you go out to bid. If we do move forward with the project, we would recommend that you try to put this project out to bid in the wintertime and try to take advantage of some good bidding, and then allow a full construction season. That typically gives you your best prices, your best bang for your buck. So it's hard to say. I don't want to throw a number out, but when we put a number out at this stage, we want it to be a little bit high because we don't want to undershoot it. So how high is it? Again, it's hard to say until we actually dive into it, get into the design. There may be some things we haven't seen yet or thought about that may, change our thinking as well. So at this stage, the numbers kind of are what they are, and hopefully, certainly moving forward, everybody's wishful that they come down. But.
And then additionally, with the estimates that are provided for the full infrastructure, we've only got a smaller portion actually put into the budget. So we've got $1.4 million in roads in the budget, and we've got about $4.25 million in water. So that gets you to 5.7 million. So there is, about another million and a half that's just kind of out there as unfunded currently. So if for some reason we came in way under budget, that would give us the ability basically to expand to complete some of those other roads.
Let me ask you this now, the increase that's proposed in the water infrastructure fee, would that be a sunset situation where once the bond's paid off, that fee goes away?
I hadn't thought that far in advance, simply because the bond itself would probably be a 20-year term. So a 20-year sunset would be unique. It could be done. I don't know that it would be bad policy to do so. So it'd be something, when we actually drafted the ordinance to implement it, we could decide then.
So we would be bonding 6.5. Is that pretty accurate or pretty close?
4.25 is what we're proposing. We have about the $1.4 million in roads funds are left over from Game Farm. So that's right. The amount that we have left over. And so we think that about 4.25 out of the water fund would be what we would bond this year.
The other question I had, what led you to doing on the water versus maybe a separate bonding that conducting your tax?
It's a good question. It's a function of the water fund. So, we knew it had to come out of the water fund to replace the water. Off the top of my head, I'm not sure how many other bonds we actually have that we could not abate in the water fund if we could get that entire debt service. I know in general that when we had property taxes, when we had debt service on the property tax rolls, the bond rating agencies generally understood, but it was kind of a knock against our rating. So it might save everybody a little bit of money here and there on their income tax deductions, but it might be at the cost of potentially having a lowered bond rating. So it's something we'll look at, and if we think we can do it feasibly and that becomes an option the council would prefer, I think, Rob and I can discuss it. But the initial reaction was just to get a stable revenue source, and that's kind of what you do when you implement a bond, is you immediately look for a way to do it. Additionally, if we went into selling that bond, this new bond, with the intention to immediately put it on property tax rolls, we would have to go out for a general revenue bond, which then would require a referendum on the front end. So that's the other reason.
Yes, sir.
With going for the, that would be a set fee on there. Impacting, we're also talking about the water sales that were significantly lower than what we projected. We projected an increase of 360,000, and we were short 175.
Yes.
And if we have another year like last year, we could be even worse off.
Yes.
That's, I don't like the idea of going out for a bond, but that is a surefire way of getting the fees we need to pay for it. Putting it on as a fee, and then having, the water rates, it's a little concerning that we may not get some of that. We're going to increase the rates, and we might not get some of those fees to come in because we are banking on people using water. We have a water restriction in place, which is good for the city, but it also is a hindrance to us. But a cool season like last year, that could be detrimental to our revenues. We might have to make cuts later down the road if we see we're not making those projections.
And not only a cool summer, but I think water consumption is on the downfall anyway overall, just because of better appliances and everything else. So.
Well, to piggyback onto that too, when the water starts costing you more, you're much more careful about fixing that leak or how much you're watering your yard and things like that, which feed directly into probably why it was lower a little bit last year, and because maybe people have the rain barrels where they're killing their water, really using their yard instead of watering their yards with water. So it kind of feeds into that.
And the irony is we want people to use less.
Right, less consumption.
We want to replenish our aquifers. We want to do all this.
On the backside of that, that's much longer time than we have to expand our water system to.
Right. It could add 10, 20 years in the back end.
Yeah, that's a huge expense.
Well, we need the new wells. Right.
Which is another $6 million for the well treatment.
So it costs us more now because we're not getting the revenue from the water bills, but it's giving us an extra 20 years on our wells. We're just going to save us millions.
Is everyone generally in favor of doing countryside and bonding it out and getting it done? It needs to be done.
It's time.
It's time, so it sounds like there's pretty much a consensus on that.
It's kind of like it's almost a new center of the north side of Yorkville. We've got a movie theater, for Christ's sake. It's gorgeous. So to have a dilapidated entry and exit on both ends isn't the wisest move as far as helping them kind of get the tenants that we want to make that area even better. So from my opinion, absolutely fix it. I'm driving on roads that aren't even completed yet. So from that perspective, it's kind of like, well, if you're going to fix this old infrastructure, how about we at least complete mine in the Spring Meadows? I know it's a whole different set of issues that are kind of affecting that. But when you're explaining it to people, why, well, we need to kind of focus on the neighborhood and fix it up, not just for the people that live there, but the businesses that are kind of around there. It makes sense to not have a road falling apart with this beautiful 3D movie theater. So from that aspect, I'm completely for it. The one thing that is somewhat confusing to some people is that we have the WIMF, the RIMF, and the SIMF. I wouldn't mind a SIMF with a C. It's a countryside infrastructure fee, so we know that this will go away. Because I know that we're going to have, a consistent, okay, this is what our water rate is, we're doing this to have a steady source of income. But it's almost like I'm fearful of getting into the bond territory because we're still kicking the can down the road. I wouldn't mind finding a way to, as countryside starts, hitting it small and kind of building up a little bit of more power to kind of pay for it before we dive fully into the bonds. So that's where I'm just a little leery, but I understand it's completely necessary. So it's going to suck regardless. But I would like to see some way of kind of explaining to people, yes, your money isn't just going to the water fund. I want to be specific, because after Countryside, it's going to be something else. I think it makes sense to at least involve everybody who's paying the bills in what we're paying for, consistently.
Larry?
Well, I agree exactly. That's what I was getting at with the sunset discussion earlier. And everybody understands that there's an increase. This is what it's going for. And once it's paid off, that should go away. I think we're at a point with Countryside where we don't have any choice, like it or not. I mean, we've dragged this out as long as we can, and something has to be done. And you know me, I'm the last one to want to raise anything, but we've got to find revenue somewhere to do this, because the longer we wait, the more expensive it's going to get. We're going to have the same discussion a year from now. And, you know, if I was living there, I wouldn't be happy. I wouldn't want to live under those conditions.
We have no problem even putting right on the water bill exactly how much of what fee goes to what. I mean, we can easily explain it. Carol?
Well, yeah, I would support it. I'm with Larry. I hate raising fees. I hate doing anything, but in reality, you have to get things done too. I mean, you know, we have this beautiful countryside developing now. Everything's clean and new roads and new, you know, sewers and things like that Jim put in for the movie theater and everything else. But when you hit the nail on the head, when you bring somebody in to show them those properties and their SUV bottoms out, how impressed are they going to be with that location? What are the chances that they're going to want their customers coming down those roads to go into Countryside? I mean, yeah, it's time. I mean, we've been talking about Countryside way before I was ever on this council, and nothing's ever been done. I mean, unfortunately, the time has come. And I agree. The money goes to Countryside, and once that's paid off, that's what the money was for. We don't just keep billing the people, so.
Chris, did you have something? Or anyone else on the Countryside issue? What else we want to talk about on the budget? Anyone else have any concerns or questions?
I'd kind of like to get the DDC just an opinion of people, right? What word stands.
But
the increase in the YDC.
Yeah, we have a YEDC meeting tomorrow, so it might be good to see what people are thinking about that. Probably want to just give a little update on it. I know Lynn has mentioned that she will be kind of stepping back a little bit, and they are looking for a new they'll start looking for a new executive director, and I'll keep Lynn on for a transition period. And you know, with that, they increased funding. Well, they increased the dues for every executive board member, and they're asking the city to kick in a little bit more, which is still cheaper than bringing it in-house. I guess I just updated that. I don't know, do you have anything to add on that?
No, I mean, there's a fairly extensive list of pros and cons for each option in there. So, you know, I did state in the memo that, you know, we need to make the funding decision now. We don't necessarily have to make the formal decision. So I guess I'd keep that in mind when we're talking about the actual budget.
I almost feel like that's true for pretty much everything. It's a roadmap. It's going to change.
Yeah.
From my opinion, my young, rookie, deliciously bald opinion, the YEDC to me is just Lynn. That's my only interaction with them, with her. So I don't know what my experience would be outside of the Dubacek era. So I can only kind of lean on you guys to make that decision. Because like you said, we don't have to spend the money right now. We just want to have it there. And if the answer does become no, we're not going to pay those 50 grand, or at least we haven't lost it. So that's just personal there.
We are going, I mean, the city portion gets paid here pretty quickly, right? Next year.
I think so.
The invoice, I think, has already been sent out. I don't remember if we coded it already this year or not. Rob will probably chime in here in a second. But the additional $25,000 expenditure, I believe they weren't looking to bill until May or June. And not even bill, they were seeking a commitment first, obviously, before they bill. Because our existing commitment is $48,000 a year.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I mean, I don't support the increase as far as the YEDC. I do like the YEDC. I've never been happy with the fact that we pay $50,000 and we get the same amount of representation as somebody who pays $5. I've always had that issue. And now, you know, the state's asking us to cut, the state's cutting, we're cutting, YEDC has to cut. I mean, I am not in support of throwing another $25,000 at the YEDC. I would like to stay a member of the YEDC at our current rate, but when you look at the projected budgets, going from 40-something to 70-something to 80-something projected down the road as far as what this is going to cost us, I'm not going to be in support of that, plain and simple.
Chris?
The YEDC, you know, any private organization that's economic development for that works on behalf of the municipality is good. I wholly support having a private arm that can do that job for us because we can look to Oswego and see some of the problems that are there. Funding them is part of the problem. How we do it, how much we give them. The increase is a significant increase. I know they've gone through a lot of changes, a lot of cuts, and they're asking all of their membership for increases on dues. I wouldn't support having this type of an organization come into the municipality. I don't think it would be right for us to be able to try to continue economic development, having it in-house. Yeah, we could pay a staff member that salary and have them do that, but there would be certain limitations. There are going to be organizations that would not want to talk to a staff person due to those restrictions. But my concern is, what are we getting with the YEDC? We have seen movement throughout the past several years, new businesses. We've seen the membership retained in the YEDC. I haven't noticed a significant growth of the YEDC. But as I said, my concern is, what are we getting from the YEDC? What is our benefit? Lynn was very important in bringing in the Wrigley expansion, XPAC. We've seen these things happen in the past year, and throughout the prior years, we've seen a lot. During the boom, she was instrumental in bringing in many of the big boxes and commercial developments that we have today. So I do support the YEDC, but I was on their website just the other day. Their board is not accurate. The current status of what's happening with the organization is not current. The information that's provided there is 2 to 3 to 4 years old. Irrelevant for somebody looking at the United City of Yorkville and trying to come in here for economic development. Yes, if you talk to somebody at the YEDC, you're going to get information. But if you're going as a resource to look at the YEDC, you're getting old information that's not valid. What value is that to us? Is it worth an increase of over $25,000 in 1 year? I understand that staff is cut over there, they have limits, but as having the municipality, the city of Yorkville behind them, that does not look good for our economic development branch. I have hesitation committing to an increase until we can have some assurances and have a plan of action. And with having a new director going to be coming in next year, granted there'll be an overlap. Lynn is going to step back, we're going to have a new director, and we're going to have her assisting. There could be more issues that could arise in that, as we've seen with others, such as the AACBB. I'm not saying that will happen. I hope we do find a qualified, good candidate that can run and grow the YEDC. But for the increase they're asking, I need to see results. More than just a couple businesses, I need to see that the information that they're disseminating is accurate. It is in the best interest of the city and our investment. That's, anytime we give somebody money, what are we getting? What's our return on investment? And why should we be giving it to them?
Okay, I know with their budget, I mean, they've been in survival mode for a while, and I know they left all their staff, the only staff member is one. So, I mean, that's why things like the webpage and other stuff is.
But they have a membership that includes staff that are, or not staff, their membership includes people that are skilled and versed. I could easily see somebody trading a membership fee for services. Why has that not been considered? Why do we not have an updated website that has the information relevant when you have members that can do that? Trade the fee for the service, get it done. Somehow, we need to be putting our best foot forward, and while we have had some major successes, we still have some issues that need to be worked out. And I'd like that to be brought to the table before we commit to giving them anything extra.
Anyone else? Vicki?
Well, I guess I have to echo what Chris says. You know, I'm not for an increase if we're cutting back things. He mentioned about the ACBB. It's kind of the same. You know, I've mentioned it to you. We haven't had a report from Lynn here, and I'm not asking for name drop or anything, but just of what's happening with it, and I can't even remember one. So I feel like we're going the same route as we did that, as the tourism group. And now I didn't know their website. It kind of bothers me to hear that that's, you know, not up to date, because if there are people looking at it who want to do business with us and we have old stuff, I guess I agree with Chris. I have to take a real hard look at it. If we're cutting back, this is an area to hold where we are and save that money and direct it someplace else. I agree with you.
Anyone else on the IDC issue?
Yes, sir. Just chime in here. I don't mind keeping the money in the budget, you know, but I think we need to, this is another discussion this council's going to have sometime in the near future, or what direction we're going. But for now, I think we leave it in there. No, we can always move it out if we need to.
Okay. What else do we want to talk about? What other big policy decisions do we have with this budget?
Those are the two biggest ones. So, I mean, the water discussion is on there. There's the separate water infrastructure fee adjustment, obviously to offset last year's lack of revenue, but everything else is relatively stable.
Yes, sir.
I just have a question on this IMET loss. If I'm reading this correctly, you're writing this off as a loss in the new budget.
In the current fiscal year.
In the current fiscal year.
So fiscal year 15.
Okay, so, but there is some optimism that we may get some of this money back at some point?
Yes, we've gotten $5,500 back so far, and IMET still maintains, there was a meeting today that I didn't get an update from Rob yet on, but they still maintain that they expect municipalities to be made whole or close to it. So there's been a sizable amount of assets that have already been seized.
Okay. If we get this money back, what fund does that go into then?
It would go into on a proportionate basis into each fund that's been impacted. So I think there's 6 or 7 different funds.
Honestly, explain to me, because I read your article today. So if you think the money comes back, why do you in such a hurry to write the loss off? Can't that, the money's in limbo right now, right?
It is restricted from withdrawal, so we could not withdraw it if we wanted to. The actual reimbursement timeline is still unknown, and it's really at the hands of the federal court system. And so just knowing that, you know, I could easily foresee, an extended payment period, perhaps over years. Could be more than 6 to 12 months. But our current bad debt policy says that anytime you have a revenue that you don't expect to receive over about a 12-month period, you should write it off. So we're saying that we don't think that we'll get full reimbursement in 12 months.
So when you write that off, then basically it's a hit to the city budget for that.
It is. It'll show up on your CAFR at the end of the year, and then as we receive money back in future fiscal years, or for some reason it's all in the next fiscal year, it shows up as a revenue.
I was just going to say it doesn't really matter because it makes the budget more clear and more transparent because we don't have that money. We don't have access to it.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, following up on the IMET, I think we also have to look at what alternatives do we have to IMET, because, and I understand right now we're restricted from withdrawal, but that's not going to be forever, obviously. And based on the information that we've gotten, you know, this is a fund that had $2 trillion in it, and now it's down to $700 million.
Yep.
I mean, that's $1.3 trillion right?
Billion.
Right, $1 billion. So I mean, from 2 billion to 700 million, that's
Everyone pulled out.
right. Everybody pulled out, and then they shut the door, and we kind of got stuck with our foot in the door. So I mean, we got to think about what we want to do and what alternatives do we have to house our taxpayer money.
Sure.
Once this problem, is eradicated and we can have access to our funds again. I don't like a fund where they shut the door on us and now we don't have access to our money.
Yeah.
So I want to be proactive on that, so when the door opens, we as a council can decide, are we staying there, or are we putting our money somewhere else?
All of our money has been invested in other vehicles at this point, so we don't have any money left on IMET but for the $330,000 that's restricted. So we've already made the decision at administrative level, at least as far as city council prior approvals of different investment vehicles. So we have went to an as secure, more secure vehicle method.
Okay, yes, sir.
If we're done with IMET,
I don't think we want.
just want to kind of bring up the conversation of the CVB. We've been talking about that in committee. There's been some discussion about some options and alternatives. I know staff has been doing some research. I've talked to some of the other municipalities around, some of the board members and some of the administrators about some of the different opportunities and options. I want the council to consider making sure that we still have the same funding in the budget. We have to expend it on, we have to expend our hotel tax on tourism. Doesn't necessarily have to be the CVB. But I want it to be very clear that those funds will be expended whether or not we stay with the CVB or not. But I just want to make that clear that that's a discussion I think should run parallel to it. Our decision runs, or to stay with them is at the end of the year. But obviously if we did it ourselves, we could go with whoever we wanted, we could do something, but it is a discussion. Obviously we wouldn't be prepared to put any extra money in there. We're not in a position, but it is something for us to be talking about in this. How do we want to budget that? Do we want to have some of that in-house? Do we want to have some a consultant do some work for us? But I do think this would be a good time for us to discuss the CVB as well.
Yeah, it's interesting because one of the proposals in the governor's turnaround agenda, or whatever he calls it, is to loosen restrictions on the motel tax that can be used for things other than tourism.
Just to piggyback on that, one of the things that I was discussing, somebody else from another municipality, is that we have these regional tourism boards and then we have the state board. And if you're the little fish, does it make sense to throw money into a regional organization when if you went for the full state, basically they don't really worry about advertising in state, they're pushing all out of state. So would it make more sense to throw the little dollars that we have towards the full state boards? They have Enjoy Illinois, and there's Illinois State Board of Tourism, and there's 2 or 3 other ones that are pretty much the full state. Does it make sense to just pitch all the money towards them and see what happens from that? Is that more legitimate than kind of battling it out between the 18 or 20 that we have in the small regional one? So it's, I would love to see something change.
If I could, Mayor. One would think that that would be logical, but the state does its own thing. We wouldn't be able to give our money to the state to do that. They collect a different revenue stream from what we have, and they expend that. They give us funds if we are part of the regional tourism boards. The CVB is considered regional, so it does have the ability to capture some of those funds, a significant amount, but the majority of that is based on Aurora's population. The state has a different marketing initiative with those dollars than what we would have. They're not trying to market locally to try to bring them into our communities, they're just trying to bring them to the state as a whole. The CVB markets to the entire Fox Valley region, Batavia down to Big Rock to Yorkville and everything in between, except for Oswego. While it makes sense that, yeah, you would think you could just give them that money back and they would do it, we're not getting what's in our best interest, because this little bit of money is given to us by our own hotels. That's a tax that we have in place for them. You know, you're thinking along the right ways, what are the other options we have? But this is one way we do get to control what we have, what we get to spend that money on. And whether or not the CVB is doing it the right way or not, that's a different discussion, but it is a more local control of our own money.
Well, I just wanted to piggyback on Chris, and I obviously we have to spend the money, so I'd like to see it in the budget, but I like to see it in the budget as just generic tourism. And then we can decide what to do with that. I don't want to see a line item in the budget that says CVB. I don't want to be presumptuous, I don't want to, the line item is tourism, and that's our money for tourism. And at a later point in time, we as a council can decide how to spend that money, because we're obligated to do so for tourism, and that's fine. But I don't think it should be in the budget in any way, shape, or form indicating that that money is earmarked for CVB.
It's currently listed as hotel tax rebate, so.
What page is that on, Bert?
It's budget page 61, which PDF page in your actual city council packet, I don't. So we can retitle the line item to be tourism initiatives or something general like that. Just to make it
I mean, as long as it wasn't specific,
Right.
that's, I want a broad.
Yeah.
Right, no, that's fine the way it is. Okay, what else? Anything else for tonight? We'll probably, keep looking at the budget, keep coming up with questions. We may have a motion on there to approve the budget in 2 weeks, but there's no rush. We got plenty of time, so if there's anything else we want to discuss, bring it forward. Any additional business? Hearing now, we do have one executive session. Yes.
I just had one. I don't know if Alderman Katza, we got an email today, a concern about, now that you can't turn from 47 out to River Road, they're going up to, is that Maine? West Main, thank you. And I had a resident concerned about the amount of traffic that's going there with the park and children. I don't know if there's obviously nothing we could do. She's concerned that people are turning and speeding down that block to loop back around to go back to River Road, and if we could just, have an office.
Hopefully the sales get better now that construction is moved out of that area. It'll be much more wide open. Last year was neck down until right at winter.
Yeah, I think it just, I understand, I mean, I do that where I wanted to take River Road, you go up that block. So it is, I thought of that myself, that wow, that is, for that one block, it's increased a lot of traffic. But she's concerned that people are just like, gunning and flying down the street. So if we could maybe check into that.
I go down that street all the time.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Any other additional business? Anyone else have any other citizen comments on any item afterwards? Okay. And now we will adjourn to executive session. There will be no action after executive session.
Oh,